I think of PR, this bill was single-handedly destroyed by one senator, but hindi ko na banggitin kung sino siya. But anyway, so the questions. I'll be very categorical. Again, I'm a blogger, no? So, and I hope to get straight, categorical answers. Kasi marami rin bloggers nagtitweet, nagtatanong. So since wala masyadong mga bloggers, I guess I have to ask the questions. So for example, in 2013, may isang kandidato, tapos bloggers start writing about them in not so nice ways. Pointing out some of the things that they disagree with, their stands, people reacting to what they say, and they write it in a, sabihin natin, harsh way in their sites. Usually naman kasi hindi pinapansin unless naging viral eh. But when, in this day and age where it's so easy for people to share, tas sabihin natin umabot sa 15,000, 20,000 shares, and suddenly it has 1 million views, will that senator or that congressman or that politician, sabihin natin, have the, can that person file a libel suit against that particular blogger or social media user? So I guess that's the first question. I have several if it's okay. So.
The straight answer is even if it's the harshest comment hitting 100 million page view, the Department of Justice will not tolerate a candidate filing a libel case against a blogger of any kind or of any nature. That's a straight answer.
Thank you for that. Maraming matutuwa. Next question is, sabihin natin on a similar line, there are industries that get a lot of complaints, especially airlines, even telcos. Sabihin natin some bloggers, writers, social media air out their complaints, again, in the harshest way possible, liable for life.
I think you're setting me up for a trap. But again, the straight answer is, usually when you have the law, then you have the implementing rules and regulations. What we have not done as a community is that after the IRR, we just leave it as it is. With this new law, with this new office, with the new IRR, after the IRR, we'll come up with guidelines. Guidelines on internet safety for children, guidelines for bloggers. What is the harshest critic you can give without being libelous? What are the signposts? What are the listening posts? That's why we can educate and increase the level of academic discourse and not talk about showbiz all the time. So I think that's one area that we can work together on. Guidelines that will help you and I clarify what are the limits of free speech, because free speech is of course not absolute.
Yeah, no, so I understand that the Department of Justice will say that they will not file that case against you for libel if a politician were to file it against you. The fact of the matter is that recent history has shown us that these politicians do file libel cases, right? So if you're a blogger, you're just in your, you're at home and you're blogging on your internet connection. If somebody sends you an email, says that's libelous and he's going to file a case against you, in order for you to say, that's not libelous because I'm protected by New York Times versus Sullivan, which is a US Supreme Court case, that protects your right to criticize public figures, before you can raise that defense, you would have been charged either in the city prosecutor's office or in court. Worse, no, in court. In some of these cases, some of these cases go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Do you have the resources to defend yourself up to that point? The fact of the matter is that whether or not that case will or should be filed by the DOJ is not that relevant, because the fact of the matter is that you will take down the content because you're too afraid of what will happen to you. And this is why I think it's important and why the UN insists that the libel should be decriminalized, because it's too hard to know. In fact, earlier there was that page that was put up, no, with the PI of the baby, and the question was that libelous. And I can tell you, I don't know. It's difficult to know what's libelous and what's not. And when the law is unclear, especially when there's criminal sanctions involved, then there's potential for abuse, and we've seen that. So I think that if we believe in free speech, if you believe that the cornerstone of any democracy is a marketplace of ideas where everyone is free to speak his mind on any public issue, then I think that decriminalizing libel is the only way to go.
I agree. I have two more questions. Are publishers liable for comments left on their site? Sabihin natin it's a libelous comment.
Can I just add something to this lang, no? And I think it will address a lot of these concerns you have, no? I think the one thing that's coming out of all this, no, and hopefully this happens in the future, is you're going to see a change in how legislation is drafted. No, this will be the start of that.
Amen.
We came from. Okay, no, I'm happy to report this because I just came from a forum on e-parliaments, no, and we saw how in certain countries legislation was actually being crowdsourced. No, ilalabas mo yung legislation dyan, people would put in their own comments. So it was not just blind criticism, you had to be constructive and productive. You didn't like this portion, tanggalin mo, palitan mo, ayusin mo. Now, I think this is where we're going to have to head. No, and we've been, you know, me and the people who are involved in ICT have been saying this is where it has to go. I'm not a lawyer, and you know, my parents are lawyers, but I think it's a good thing I'm not a lawyer. Sorry to the lawyers, because with this, mawawalan ng trabaho yung lobbyists. Ganun na mangyayari dito. And from the systems we've seen, you could see that if parliamentarians, MPs, were not involved in listening to the comments and the suggestions of their constituents, directly related yung grade nila at saka yung popularity nila. It was all online. So hindi ka mag-interact sa mga constituents mo at ano yung sinasabi nila, nakikita yung grade mo. It was that black and white. No, and I think that's the kind of people representation we're all looking for. No? So hopefully this whole exercise has shown us just how poor our legislative process is, including, you know, where I'm sitting. No? Dahil you're complaining about one bill. You're complaining about this anti-cybercrime bill. And I can tell you, being in Congress, being in government, there's a ton of bad bills out there. But you haven't had a chance to look at them. No, so I think beyond this, you guys have to take the challenge to a bigger forum. No, yes, you are critiquing a bill and some of its components. Look at, and we have to create the system for you guys to actually look at all the legislation that we are passing. At hindi yung pag nailabas na at saka naghahabulan. No, I mean, you know, we're chasing the after the fact here, no? But I think this is an excellent forum for us to expose and discuss a bad practice na nakasanayan na nating lahat. No, I mean, this is my first and last term in Congress, so you know I can say this. I'm not running for public office, but it's a problem of the system. It's not a problem of the individual. You know, magalit man kayo sa akin, magalit man kayo dun sa senador, the system is the problem. No. So I think here you guys have brought out something that the lawyers and the legislators can't fix on their own. I think it's something that because of this forum, we now have a chance to address.
I am glad that the congressman from Taguig had expressed the intent of Congress to review and possibly amend the existing cybercrime prevention law for the better. But right now, we are assured by the DOJ that they will pass an IRR which somehow would soften the law which is otherwise broad and vague. I know the person. He is a good-natured person. He always acts in good faith as far as I'm concerned, as far as my dealings with him are concerned. But my unease is reflected by the fact that the more she explains the law, the more I am convinced that indeed the law is overly broad and vague. Here lies, therefore, the defect of some of the provisions of the law. Now, we rely ourselves on the fate of this man, on the face of the alleged impending IRR. The problem here is when you issue an IRR clarifying the law to the extent that in so clarifying you may modify, you may restrict, or you may overexpand the law, then that IRR is void because in effect you are supplanting the wisdom of